Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a nice and mild Saturday. Here's what we're expecting so far. We still have these winter alerts for us. So, ice storm warnings for a couple of counties to our northwest. And a lot of these counties have kind of seen a good deal of some ice accumulation. We've gotten some information from some of our reporters out in the shoals that there are some icy roadways. So looking at the rest of our counties that just have winter weather advisories, that could be anything between mixed precipitation and slick roads, where this morning we got a lot of reports from you all about some slick roads and some closed roadways. You can always check our website for updates as far as road closures go, but there were plenty this morning. I believe as of lately, 72 has opened back up, if I'm not mistaken. But there's a lot of areas where we are trying to make sure that folks that aren't able to get on the road can get on the road. So we're trying to keep that up to date as possible. And these weather alerts here are going to be on our forefront and in our communities through Sunday afternoon, some folks well into the evening. So keep that in mind as you make any plans going through the next few days, because this is probably going to be an event that we see carrying on even into Monday and Tuesday, sort of the work week. So just want to make sure that you all are well aware of that as well. So, of course, feel free to leave comments as you have any questions or concerns. I'm trying to make sure I have full attention on comments as well. So here's what we're looking at. We're still in the midst of that ice potential for a couple areas. Right now, we're not seeing a great deal of that ice for our metro areas. What we are expecting to see, though, from areas, like Henniger, Fort Payne, and even Rainsville, expecting to see some of those larger chances there with like around a quarter an inch or just above it at about 39 centimeters of ice. So the expectation with that is the fact that with a quarter of an inch, that's still enough to have things turn a little to the wayside for some folks. We did have a graphic put out on Brad's Facebook, and usually when you start to get around a quarter of an inch of that ice on the roadways, you start getting the concern of patchy black ice, minor power outages in some areas. May also see some ice accumulation on the trees, and that's a concern as well, because if trees are close to your home, you don't want to cause any damage to your home as well. And even when this is all said and done, if there's a tree that's nearby your backyard, if anything would happen to it with a branch, all sorts of things happen that way. So want to make sure that folks are keeping that on the forefront of their mind as well, just being as safe as possible as we go through these next couple of days, because we're getting a second surge. Let's see if I'm going to grab my iPad. I had some really good points about this. Let's see. So, technically, with this situation, we're going through about two specific phases here. So we've gone through the first phase, so to speak, where we've seen that the early morning ice kind of accumulate. But the second phase that we are seeing, that now basically means a second push of some of that colder air coming back in. We're dealing with some rain chances on the way into the forecast as well. So with that coming in our later evening hours, carrying over into your Sunday, that's going to cause that opportunity for almost a resurgence of an icy roadway for a couple areas. And folks that have already dealt with these iced over roads, you may come into that once again on Sunday. So that's why we have a lot of churches that are canceling things. A lot of schools are making some early determinations. There were a couple of schools that have already made it known to us and made it clear that they would cancel for Monday or Tuesday. Make sure you're checking our website for those closures as far as schools go as well. Road closures, school closures, all of that can be found on WAFF.com, but also You can catch it on our app as well. We'll be updating as things come in for you, but we're getting a lot of church closures as well going into this because it's really a concerning matter going into Sunday morning, because we could really get a good deal of this going into your Sunday morning, kind of repeating what we saw for a couple areas this morning. So yes, Joshua, we are expecting to see a second opportunity for some winter weather coming into next weekend. But right now, we really want to make sure we get through this push. And then once we get through this, about Monday, Tuesday, we can really start and really just rinse and repeat with the process of making sure how things will change and what that will look like for us. And there could be that concern where we already have this winter weather in the mix, and some of our lows are still in that lower end around freezing or just above it. That could cause like a second resurgence of that as well. So that's one of our concerns. Yes, folks are reporting ice on their front steps and car windows. These are the kind of things that we're seeing with this ice potential as well. Through this evening, we have this ice that's likely to change over to rain, and that's especially for our northwestern communities. A lot of these communities have kind of seen an ice accumulation throughout most of this morning, and you'll notice that there's more ice on the northwestern portion than our communities. And what we're dealing with right now is seeing kind of that leftover ice in those areas close down some things. And then on top of that, you may have some ice accretion on your car, like folks are mentioning here. I think right now I see a couple of questions about DeKalb County. I'm going to go ahead and take us over to our hour by hour. So at this point, we are going to see a few areas still dealing with a little bit of sleet. And it's times like this, I wish we had a little magic wand or something that you could see. Maybe you could see with my arrow here. Maybe. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think you can. But, so Phil Campbell, we'll see another pass through of some winter mix. Could be sleet or freezing rain. Looks like since they're above freezing, maybe a little more of that freezing rain, if anything. But taking it over to DeKalb, Jackson County, I know those are some of our areas that we were more so concerned about. Starting to see that kind of taper off a little bit as we get to the 4 and 5 o'clock hour. We'll see some of that pass through, but you'll notice in the top left corner there where we have that wind speed. The other deal here is the fact that when we get wind gusts up to around 20 or so miles per hour, that kind of accelerates the freezing of some of the ice or sleet that's falling. That kind of accelerates and kind of hangs it in there and really gives it a foundation to stick around and stay. And the fact that these areas have also seen some road closures with ice, all that good stuff. Well, not so good stuff, but all of the things of that nature where you've seen it, like folks have mentioned here with their cars, their front steps, sidewalks have been, I think there was a couple of apartment complexes that have talked about sidewalks being frozen and closing down some of their community buildings. So when you have that already kind of on deck for one day, and Saturday has been a little on the lackluster end so far, we're going to see that rain overnight, and sure, it will melt things, but we already have that foundation that's created with some of that ice that's kind of gotten to the ground cold enough that any added in chill factor with our temperatures dropping overnight, that's the big concern, is the fact that we already have that. We have that ice already founded in some of those areas. We go into a refreeze after some rain. We could see that resurgence of those areas being closed back down. So again, that goes back to that point of why some of our churches and restaurants and things of that nature have closed for Sunday, and schools are starting to make that call for Monday. And some areas are even looking into how Tuesday will shape up. So this future cast here is around 4 o'clock, but going into the overnight hours, we'll see more rain out of the nighttime than we will earlier in the day. So yes, the feel like temperatures for a lot of us quite chilly as we go into these next few hours. Overnight tonight, we'll see more of those rain chances. And then by that point into, let's see if I could get my Uh-oh, reconnecting. But as we get into the next couple of hours into Sunday, we'll start to see those chances for rain going into Sunday morning. I'm not entirely sure what's going on with our Max at the moment. My connection to Max seems to be a little shaky. But one of the big concerns, like I mentioned, going into those overnight hours and those temperatures settling into some 30s and 40s, and then even in the morning getting cooler as we start the day, wind speeds picking up as well. So that seems to be one of our concerns as we go into Sunday morning. You'll see here heavier chances of rain, wind speeds picking up. That's another anticipation that we could see that kind of melt as we go into those morning hours. But as we get through the rest of our Sunday morning, a good deal of our communities could still see this rain around, but that could also lay the foundation for some potential ice and sleet. Let's see. Not entirely sure why it keeps giving me the weird. Okay, there we go. So our northwest communities will still see that rain chance, but there'll also be some sleet mixed in for those western communities as well as we go into the 11:30 hour for Sunday. Then as we get through the rest of Sunday afternoon, all of the precipitation will start to taper off and should be done for Sunday evening, as you can see here. But you'll notice those temperatures are dropping, and a lot of that rain doesn't stop until around 3-4 o'clock. We get into these 20s when our ground is not that dry. So we're still going to incur that refreeze going into our evening. We lose that daytime heating with the sun being out a little bit, but even still, with a lot of these rain chances, it won't be much of an opportunity for that for the sun to melt things as well. The rain will have to do a lot of that work, but with it being left behind, and again, wind speeds picking up as well, about 15 miles per hour, that means gusts could be at around 20, 25. And 20 is that low end threshold for when we start to accelerate the freeze for things. So that's what's making things dangerous, is how those overnight hours will handle things. So let's see if we can get to our afternoon planner here. We're expecting to see a lot of that rain coming back through, certain areas seeing some freezing rain at times, possible sleet. Temperatures expected to settle in those mid and low end 30s. So again, we're still seeing an opportunity for an overnight slight pop up in temperatures, but even still, that's going to lay that foundation for some of that freezing that we'll anticipate to see. And going into the next few days, we'll still see our lows at freezing or below, which means those overnight hours are really going to take a toll on how things start to settle. 11 degrees going from Monday evening into Tuesday, and Monday's high about 26. So that'll also play into that factor as well. Tuesday gets us into those mid 30s. We still see a lot of our lows well below freezing as we go into the next couple of days. And that could set us up for this next opportunity that we're looking at for the next weekend. But like I said, we'll have to handle that once we get through this first set of winter weather for us. So by Monday, Tuesday, we'll be able to turn our head towards what should be on the horizon come next weekend. We'll see how things change and ebb and flow. But of course, as always, I'll be doing this stream every hour on the hour for the next couple of hours. So I'll see you at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. We'll be on air for the 5 and 6, but even still, we'll cut in around 7 o'clock as well and get some good information back on the forefront of your mind. And we'll also upload here on Facebook. You can always rewatch these as need be. Make sure you are keeping up to date with our forecast via Facebook on our app as well. Lots of different ways that you can keep up to date with this forecast because it's ever changing. Now that we're in the midst of it, we're still seeing a couple of changes as we go through these model runs. So with that being said, please stay off the roads. If you're in one of those ice compromised areas. And soon enough, that'll be a lot of us going into Sunday afternoon and evening. So please make sure you are doing your due diligence, staying safe out there, and I will see you guys back within the next hour. Have a good one.